Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to another Monday of Sip with Joy. I am Joy M. Hutton. I'm your host today. I am a serial entrepreneur and lover of food and wine. And if you are just joining me for the first time today, this is a show about a girl, her wine, and her feelings, and I am that girl. Yeah, thank you guys for joining me again for another episode of Sip with Joy. If you're in the chat, let me know you're there. This is the episode, guys, where I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone. Hey, Just Lee. Oh, thank you from South Carolina. This is an episode where I am stepping outside of my comfort zone, guys, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it because this is all about pushing myself to the limits. Today, guys, I am drinking a Riesling, and this is actually from a black-owned wine brand because we still in Black History Month, and it's called a Riesling from Love Cork Screw. So if you have a Total Wine in your area and some Targets in Chicago have it, definitely check her out. You know I have to take my sip. All right, come on in, guys. Okay, so today's topic is let's talk about sex, baby. So we're gonna get into it. And I am joined by sex and relationship therapist Kaycee Polite. And yes, that is her real last name. We're going to get into what are the most uncomfortable things to talk about as relates to sex, what's trending in the bedroom, and how to tell your partner what you want. And disclaimer, this is not an episode about my sex life, okay? About me talking about my sex life. So don't even go there, y'all. All right, so I'm going to bring on our special guest. Hey, Casey.
Hello, Joy. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you.
You too. I'm so glad you decided to do this episode with me. And I know my audience is like, what is going on with Joy? How you go from
Mhm.
talking about grief to sex, you know? But hey, it's all about real life, real
That's
life,
right.
real feelings, all that stuff. So
That's
tell
right.
us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So, again, I am Kaycee Polite. I'm a clinical social worker, and I have a private practice here in Texas providing sex and relationship therapy and coaching services. I have two fur babies. I got to put that out
Oh,
there.
I do
My
too.
little
She's sitting
lovely.
back here.
Oh, my two little ones. I'm obsessed with French fries, but I have to be mindful of my waistline.
Yes.
And buffalo cauliflower. Just have to put that out there. That's
Okay.
a love of mine. These things give me a lot of pleasure when I eat them.
Oh. So speaking of pleasure, you call
Yeah.
yourself the pleasure pusher. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that. And before we do that, what are you sipping on tonight?
Yes, you know what? This is tea.
Okay.
Tonight, I decided to skip the wine. I was
All
kind of
right.
debating.
That's okay. I got
So
enough
I
for
went,
both of us.
thank you. Have a sip for me.
Yes. Cheers.
So I decided to go with a cinnamon apple. It just feels like crisp in the air. It's a little cool
Mm.
here in Dallas. So I wanted to have yeah, something to make me cozy.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Okay, so back to being called the pleasure pusher. Why do you call yourself that?
Yes. So I gave myself that name. It just, listen, it was the best phrase to describe how passionate I am about helping people maximize their pleasure in the
Hmm.
bedroom and outside of the bedroom, right?
Right.
Pleasure is not a bad word. It's okay to seek joy and enjoyment and all the things that we do. And so that really is my passion, is to support people in experiencing more pleasure. So
Yes.
I
I'm
push
here
it.
for it.
I'm talking
Hey,
about
you
it.
said I
Yeah,
push it real good. All
yeah.
right, I know my audience gonna be quiet tonight because they shy. But you
Mm,
all make sure you drop any questions that you have in the chat, anything you want to talk about in the
love it.
chat tonight because they like, ooh, I don't want to put myself out there. So let's get into it. All right, so
Yes.
What do you think are some of the most uncomfortable topics for people to talk about when it comes to sex?
Mm. Joy, you know what? This question is very simple to answer. And I think those of you who are in the audience would agree. The answer is almost everything.
Yes.
Literally, almost everything related to sex is often uncomfortable for people to talk about
Mm-hmm.
because we were never taught how to talk about sex
Right.
and physical intimacy. So, whether that's talking about what you like, what you don't like, a fantasy that you may have, all of those things are hard for people to have a conversation about. We're
Mm-hmm.
concerned about how that perception will be, and I think that's what holds people back from having the conversation.
Yeah. Why do you
Mhm.
think that is? Is it what will my mother think? What will my daddy think? Because I
Yes,
definitely told my parents, listen, don't tune into this episode, y'all. Even though I'm a whole grown woman. But why do you
absolutely.
think that is?
So sex has always been a topic that's been whispered,
Yeah.
right? Do you remember growing up and maybe something happened in a movie and all of a
Right.
sudden they're covering your eyes or they're
Yes.
telling you not to listen, right? I feel like we live in a very sexual culture,
Mm-hmm.
but people don't know how to manage the conversation about it. So what they do
Right.
is they try to act like it's not there or it's not really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that has planted a lot of seeds in all of us to avoid the topic. People will do it, but they're
Yeah.
not going to talk about it.
Absolutely. Swan's Travel said, let the note taking begin.
Hey,
Yes, get out that notepad
I
because I
love
know y'all watching, y'all trying to get this information. So, on one of my episodes, I talked about polyamory and just the concept of it and everything. Why do you think that there is a rise in polyamory? It just seems like everywhere you look, everywhere you listen to relationships, people are like, no, I don't do just one person. I'm polyamorous. I'm pan this, pan that. So why do you think there's a rise in polyamory?
Yes. So my theory is, Joy, there isn't really a rise.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being talked about more
Mm.
because of social media.
Ah, okay.
Right. So prior to having all of this exposure where people had a platform that they owned, right? Well, they don't really own it, but it was their voice,
Yeah.
right? To share how they were feeling, people really started getting more comfortable and then forming connections, forums, groups with like-minded people, right? To
Right.
have more conversations. And so I think we're hearing about it more, but the concept
It's not
isn't
new.
new. No,
That's
no.
interesting, but you're right. Social media definitely amplifies things for sure, and puts things in under a microscope and in light that we weren't thinking about. So that's really interesting. So I've had this conversation with people, and I've seen it on social media as well, where people ask,
Mhm.
"Can you become desensitized by using a vibrator too much?"
Yes, I love, listen, I think that just the concept,
And what's too much?
yes, of introducing anything that is not connected to a human body
Right.
is taboo and controversial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, because Google is literally the supplier of so much of our information, you can go on there and find the pros and cons to any topic. And I
Right.
think that's what happens when people start looking at, okay, well, am I going to get desensitized? Because they're going to find blogs about it, as
Yeah.
well as they're going to find blogs that say, absolutely not. You can't
Mm-hmm.
be, right? So I think it's important for people to learn their body. This is
Right.
what I tell my clients all the time. Your body can get accustomed to a sensation,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you use anything too much, it can cause some numbness. But the wonderful thing about like clitoral stimulation,
Mm-hmm.
after a few days of taking a break, you will restore all of the 8,000 nerve endings that are on your clitoris and you will be fine.
Right.
But
So
again,
take a break.
exactly. But it's going to change person to person.
Yeah.
But it's not going to take the place of a human.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people get nervous about, right?
Right.
And it can't. There is no comparison. And I think we have to be mindful about how we have those conversations
Mm.
about toys versus intimacy, emotional intimacy, and a human.
Ooh, that's good. You said that it cannot replace the real thing, whether you
No.
think so or not.
Mm, mm-mm.
So speaking of the real thing, how do you tell your partner what you want without being offensive?
So remember, we started this conversation talking about how difficult it is to
Mm-hmm.
even talk about sex and
Right.
intimacy and pleasure. So before you can talk to your partner, you have to be able to honestly have this conversation with yourself. I think people jump too quick to try to have a conversation with someone else
Yes.
before they have actually spent some time in self reflection, auditing their past relationships and pleasure experiences to have a real honest conversation with themselves about what turns them on, what they like, what turns them off, things that they're interested in, and accepting those realities without shame.
Mm.
Then you can take this information to your partner and feel confident as you are sharing with them because now you're no longer concerned about bruising their ego.
Right.
You recognize that this is something that you have spent time really thinking about and processing. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can come into the conversation with compassion
Yeah.
and not just telling someone they did something wrong or
Right.
this is what I need you to change.
Because that's
That's
such a sensitive topic. It's like
it
you didn't
is.
do. Don't come at somebody like you didn't do this. It's like, oh gosh,
Exactly.
you have to
Yes.
rebuild that trust in the bedroom and all of that. So yeah, I think that's really crucial what you said. You have to know what you want first before you can even
Yeah.
begin to tell somebody else what you want. I love that.
Absolutely. Yes. And the biggest part is accepting it as
Mm-hmm.
part of who you are.
Right.
Because if not, it's hard to then communicate it with confidence and
Mm-hmm.
be able to have a conversation about it.
Right. Absolutely. So being comfortable, right? We have to
Yes.
be comfortable being uncomfortable. So how can women become more comfortable about exploring themselves versus being ashamed? Because a lot of people don't, I mean, I guess these are not always open conversations women have with one another, or maybe they come see you, and
Yes.
how do you become more comfortable with exploring yourself and
Yes.
not feeling ashamed?
Yeah, I love that. So we all have a shame story. We all
Mhm.
have seeds that have been planted and nurtured over time
Yeah.
from society, family, faith based communities, our peers, social media, right? Like we're competing against a lot
Whew.
of messages. And to
Yes.
find our own voice in all of that, I tell people to have grace with themselves.
Mhm.
Don't be upset that you don't have this thing figured out. Women often tell me, I'm 35, I should know what I like. My response is, should you? Like,
Right.
when were you given permission to even accept that your sexual desire was normal? So I say you want to have some grace about that first, right?
Right.
And then you want to get comfortable in your own skin before you can even think about exploring sexually.
Mhm.
So, really thinking about self image, can you look at yourself in the mirror naked and
Mm.
fully accept what you see, who you see,
Right.
right? Can you explore how you sound when you're experiencing pleasure in the bedroom?
Mhm.
Will you just be vulnerable with that? So,
Yeah.
I think it's important to record yourself, Joy.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Yes, because that's honestly, that's a way for you to really see
Mhm.
you experiencing pleasure.
Yeah.
That's how you can feel more confident in that. And
Mhm.
that's also going to help you have those conversations as well.
That's a that I never thought about that. People think of
Yeah.
recording for different reasons, but that is actually I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
So hey Max, hey mommy. So I have a question. People get
Yes.
intimate so quickly now. How or when do you approach your partner to discuss what you do or don't like?
Mm. Yes, great question. So I think in a dating situation, you want to be really mindful that the two of you have shared values around sexuality and intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So even before you talk about what you like and what you don't like, you want to understand where they stand. Do they want to be celibate?
Right.
Right? How do they feel about that? Because you want to check in with yourself. Is that where I am? Right? And perhaps someone may choose to explore and enjoy sexual encounters while they're dating. You want to be able to talk to someone about their boundaries. Are
Right.
there certain things you're willing to do and not willing to do before you can really talk about, well, what do you like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the boundaries.
Yes.
Let's be clear about that first. I think it's hard to determine when is too soon.
Mm.
And so again, you have to recognize what is your intention with this person?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
So, what about the narrative? Because, some people are like, I got to try it before I buy it.
Yes. Yes. And again, I think it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah,
So we want to make sure that you're not making a decision to do that because of something you heard. You want to
exactly.
make this decision because it's connected to what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel like I want to have this experience to see if we have sexual compatibility,
Mm-hmm.
stand on that for yourself. And
Right.
again, and if you choose that that's something that you don't want to do, be clear that that is where you stand, right?
Right.
No one should be able to sway you from your core belief. And I think we
Mm-hmm.
need to allow everyone to choose that for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some things people may be embarrassed about in the bedroom but are totally common?
Yes. I think one of the most common things that I hear that people are not comfortable with are fluids, right?
Mmm.
People say it's messy. There's
Nasty, messy.
sweat, right? There's like all of these bodily lubrication, like everything gets messy. But again, that's normal. Our bodies are designed to produce that lubrication, right? If your heart rate gets to a certain place, you may sweat. Like these are things that are part of the experience,
Mm-hmm.
um, as well as the passing of gas, right?
Ah.
So some people may let one go
Oh.
from either hole.
Wait,
That's
wait a
absolutely
minute.
normal. That's normal.
Not either hole. Now, I mean, come on now. You just go past gas, just
Yes, but it's like, what do you expect when all of these areas are being kind of
pressurized.
twisted, manipulated, poked, and right? Like
Yeah.
things are gonna happen,
That
and it's
is too funny.
normal. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
normal.
but yeah, it can be embarrassing though
It
if you're in that
can.
position. So,
Absolutely.
okay, so speaking of fluids, can we talk about Carisha, please?
Let's talk about it.
So
Yes.
she mentioned that she loves golden showers. And if for those of you who don't know what a golden shower it is, when someone likes to be urinated on.
Yes.
So how does this become an obsession?
Yeah. Good question. And I think honestly, Joy, we could probably ask that question about any type of kink or fetish,
Yeah.
right? And when I use the term kink and fetish, that's anything that is outside of the norm,
Hmm.
vanilla. If you add in a blindfold, that is kinky, right? Some people are
Yeah.
like, no, that's kind of normal for me. But
Right.
what I want to share with everyone, that is not considered normal. It
Right.
is a kink. So,
Okay.
with that said, I think one of the reasons that she and a lot of people are really into that particular kink, it's all connected to power and control,
Hmm.
right? And so there's an exchange of power that happens in erotic situations. And depending on what connects for you, and for her, that's what it is, right? That can create a lot of arousal. And
Right.
so it sounds like she allowed herself to experience it, see what it felt like, and it's something that she enjoyed.
Hmm.
And she's giving herself permission to have those experiences.
Well, to each his own.
To each their own. And that's how it should be. Some people like
Yes.
Thai food and some people like Italian.
Right. Okay. So more again on the topic of liquids and fluids. Is
Yeah.
squirting real?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
And why do men get so excited about this? Like, if a man's, oh, I made you squirt or whatever. I see so many things about this, and I've had conversations with people, and I'm like, why is this? Why are you getting so excited about that? And then it becomes like this competitive thing. Like, I need to
Yes.
make her do it again.
Yes. It's like a badge of honor,
Right.
unfortunately. And it's often treated the same way as orgasm, right?
Mm,
So I've talked to a lot of men who feel very frustrated if their partner doesn't experience an orgasm because they feel like it's a direct reflection of their
mm-hmm,
inability to please. And so
mm-hmm.
that concept applies with squirting, right? That's kind
Yes.
of like the ultimate for some people and how
Right.
they think about that. And so it's also connected to their masculinity and that it's very validating,
Mm-hmm.
right? To feel like that's something you did. But the key is it's something you all created together.
Yeah.
It's not something that he just did,
Right.
right? And I
Right.
think people lose sight of that
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a conquer and a quest,
Yeah.
right? This is a collaborative, it should be a collaborative experience.
Right.
So I think it's just connected to ego and they get
Yeah.
really excited about, ooh, I did this thing, or I
Right.
saw it in porn and it seems like the impossible, but I was able to help this, you know, beautiful woman have this experience. But it is
Yes.
definitely real. And it can happen at any time
Mm-hmm.
depending on stimulation and lubrication and arousal and proper stimulation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So speaking of orgasms, you're just segueing right into these questions.
I love it.
So most women have a hard time having orgasms during intercourse, and need
Yes.
other types of stimulation, like oral or whatever. So how can we change this narrative?
Yes. So the best way to, I think, take the stigma away or change the narrative is remembering that men and women don't orgasm the same. So
Right.
just because they primarily have an orgasm from penetrative sex, that does not mean automatically that that's how women should experience their orgasm
Mm-hmm.
because we were not designed that way. Our vaginal canal is not filled with nerve endings. Our
Right.
clitoris is,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have other erogenous zones on our body, nipples, back of the neck, behind the knee. There are other areas, right, that can provide an amazing orgasmic experience if you pair it. Speaking of wine, Joy, I just thought about this. But when you think about how you pair wine with food,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that's the concept that you should think about with pleasure. Are
Mm,
you pairing your stimulation? It shouldn't
right.
just be one thing that's happening for
I
women,
love that.
right? So with penetration, you may also be stimulating another part of the body, and women are then more likely to have a heightened pleasure experience and can have an orgasm.
Hmm. Okay. So you mentioned porn earlier. When
Yeah.
do you think porn is damaging to intimacy? Because
Mm.
some people use it as a tool to help them in the bedroom, but when do you think it becomes damaging?
It becomes damaging when people think it's real,
Mm,
right? When we forget that it's entertainment,
right.
that's when it becomes damaging. When it is used as the barometer for what should be happening in their bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it becomes damaging. When
Mm,
people start belittling who they are sexually because they feel like they can't perform the way that they see someone in porn, that's when it becomes damaging.
mm. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. Woo! All right. I hope y'all taking notes. I know y'all quiet over here, but hope y'all learning something out there. Okay, so this is something I can definitely relate to. Why does your libido increase when you get older? I
Mm.
swear I felt like I was a horny teenager, and I'm like, what is happening to my body? Is it just
Yes.
because I got a divorce and I only had one man? Like, what is going on? So, but then
Yes.
I read about it, and I was like, oh, when you're over 35, your libido increases or whatever, and I was like, okay, so that's what it has to be that.
Yes, it can. And you know what? It's really it's interesting how it happens because people identify the libido as increasing, but I would also have you think about the other things that you feel more confident about,
Mm,
right? So women often are more confident in their body
yeah.
as they get older, right? As they get wiser, they have had more life experiences that kind of help them keep things in perspective, right? Like that wisdom leads to often a freeness
Mm.
that allows people to connect more to who they are sexually. I would say that that libido was just dormant,
Mm.
right?
Okay. That's
Hmm.
interesting. But so is it you just have an awakening when you're older?
Yeah, so and it's gradual, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't think people realize it, and then one day you're like, "Wait a minute, like, I feel more comfortable telling people what I
Yeah.
want or what I'm experiencing, or I'm more
Mhm.
open to, I want it more, I think about it more." Like, all
Right.
it feels like it's kind of all of a sudden, but often it's kind of a slow process that's been happening over time as you have grown, evolved, and had experiences.
Mm.
And then we throw in hormones and, other
Right.
things like that can impact it as well.
Okay, I love that. All right, let's see. What are some ways to keep things spicy when you feel like your love life is boring?
Yes. So the number one thing is to consider, where do you normally have sex?
Mm.
And wherever that is, you should boycott that area for at least 2
Oh,
weeks.
wow. Okay.
Period. So if you are always doing it in the bedroom, let's go to the bathroom, let's go to the kitchen counter, let's go to the laundry room,
Mm.
let's go to other areas in your home that
Okay.
deserve to be a new environment for a new experience,
Mm-hmm.
because things get very repetitive and predictable. And that's
Right.
what you wanna break. Now, maybe you're watching this and you're like, "Casey, I got kids, I have," right? Like, I don't have, like, all these other
Can't do
spaces.
it. Be all over the house.
And I hear that too. And so what I would suggest is look at other surfaces in
Mm.
your bedroom. So if it's
Okay.
always on the bed, consider the bench, the ottoman. Maybe you have a chair in there. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you have a nice cushy rug. Get on the floor. Like, use other spaces in your bedroom so it's not always in the bed.
Mm. That's such good advice. Yeah, because people don't think about that. They may think about other things. Maybe I should role play. Maybe I should introduce toys. But it could be just something as
Something that
simple as
simple.
switching your location.
Yes. Yes, that's
Okay.
huge. Yes.
Okay. All right. I know you guys may be overstimulated in the audience.
I
We're
love
going to
it.
do a rapid fire.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
this or it's basically like this or that. So you have to
Okay.
choose one, the first one that comes to mind. So
Oh
I
boy.
love seeing this game played. It's so much fun. Okay.
Okay.
So sex with the lights on or off?
On.
Okay. Vibrator or hands?
I can't say both. Okay.
It's
Vibrator.
okay. Sex in the morning or at night?
Night.
Sex in public or secret hiding place?
Secret hiding
Okay.
place.
Comfy PJs or lingerie?
Lingerie.
Showers or baths with your partner?
Showers.
Showers. Okay.
Yes.
Handcuffs or blindfolds?
Blindfold.
Ah,
Definitely.
okay.
It's like the best kept secret for couples. Blind.
Blindfolds. Really? Seriously. Okay, yeah,
Yes,
that
because when you deny yourself one of your senses,
yes.
it can heighten the sensations of oral pleasure, for example, or anything else. It's yeah, it builds mystery, anticipation. It's like the best. Everybody should have a blindfold at the side of their bed. If they're in a couple and y'all sleep in the same bed, there needs to be, yes,
Yeah, there needs to be
blindfold.
blindfolds. You heard it. You heard
Absolutely.
it from Kaycee right
Yes.
here today.
Yes.
Okay, so for us single people out there,
Yes.
tips to get through Valentine's Day, because I guess it is Valentine's Day tomorrow, huh?
It is. Yes, it is.
Yes, so tips to get through Valentine's Day when you're single, because sometimes people get down, and
Yeah.
I am just fine, but I have my wine and other things to entertain me, so I am just fine. but some
Yes.
tips to for us single folk to get through Valentine's Day.
Yes. Listen, it's all about perspective and self-talk. I'm telling you, single folks, when you wake up tomorrow morning, the first thing I want you to do is thank your exes.
Mm.
Okay? Thank them because there's something that you learned from those relationships. You have grown, and most likely you are no longer in a relationship that doesn't allow you to be yourself. So start the day that's marked with love to consider your own growth and evolution with relationships. So in your mind, just thank them, send them a prayer, positive light, however you get down. But I think it's an interesting ritual to incorporate for Valentine's Day, to kind of honor what you got out of those past relationships, but being able to recognize that you wouldn't want to be in those relationships today on Valentine's Day, right? So you can kind of like let that go. And I think it's important to treat yourself, whatever that means. It could be the smallest thing. Maybe you don't typically go to Starbucks, but guess what? You're going tomorrow, right? Or
Right.
whatever it is. I think you want to think about how you're demonstrating self-love and use that day as a reminder. I personally don't celebrate Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
because it's just so commercialized. And I told
Right.
my husband that if we celebrated Valentine's Day for real, then that meant that all the other days would, like, it would be
Exactly.
weird. No,
Yeah.
I want that all the time.
Every day
So
is love day. Show me love
yeah.
every day.
Yes. So I
Show
would
me
say
love every
treat
day.
yourself and definitely spend time around people you care about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, you heard it. You heard Kaycee
Yeah.
Polite here. Okay, anything else you want to offer to the audience before we wrap it up?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I just want to leave everyone with is this idea that you have a birthright to experience pleasure. So I
Yes.
want you to own that experience. It is not anyone else's job to know how to please you. I'll say that one more time. It is
Yes.
no one else's job to know how to please
Mm.
you.
Ooh.
Right? And so the same way you prioritize your business, your finances, your 401k, right? Like all of these other very important parts of your life, consider this as important, who you are sexually.
That is
Um,
so good.
yeah, so I leave you with that.
Yes, because we be out here neglecting ourselves, men
Yes.
and women, and I
Yes.
think the biggest thing, one of the biggest takeaways as one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is you said you have to figure out what you want and need yourself before you can even
Absolutely.
communicate that to anybody else. And I love
Absolutely.
that because so many times we think we know and we're projecting that onto somebody else, and then it turns out that's not even what we wanted.
That's right.
So it's like
Yes.
figure out what you want,
Mm,
before you know, tearing somebody else down. So
that's
I
right. And
love
being
that, and I love this
curious.
conversation because I think it's
Yeah.
so important. A lot of the times people think it's so taboo, and it's like, ooh, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about Bruno, you know. But I think it's important that we have these conversations and be more
Yes.
comfortable so that we can achieve the life that we want, you know. in the bedroom, outside the bedroom,
That's right.
within, because a lot of it comes within. I was
Yeah,
reading an article that was talking about, if you're not comfortable with your own body, you're going to have problems in the bedroom. You're going to have a
100%.
lot of problems with intimacy. And so it's like, okay, we got to, you said it earlier, you have to be comfortable with yourself in the mirror. Get comfortable with yourself in
Yeah.
the mirror because that plays
Yeah,
a role in intimacy for sure. Because you're
it
focusing on your
does.
body and, ooh, what's he going to think of my rolls, my back rolls, when he
Yeah,
ain't even thinking about that. And you could be focusing on the moment.
that's right. And be present,
Yes,
right? It's important
be
to be present.
present.
Mhm.
So you all can find Kaycee on Instagram at K_spot_therapy. And what's your website, Kaycee?
Yes, thank you. It's KayceePolite.com.
All right. And if you're in Dallas, you can book in-person sessions now because your office is back open.
Yes, yes, I opened back up since COVID. It's been several years and I'm really excited. So I do
Yes.
offer virtual sessions as well as in-person sessions here in North Dallas.
Yes.
Yes.
And you do virtual sessions too, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
virtual sessions. So make sure you go follow Kaycee on Instagram. She is
Yeah.
always dropping gems,
Thank you, Joy.
and she is a sex and relationships therapist. So not just sex, but
Yes.
she talks about relationship topics as well.
Yeah.
And what else do you have coming up?
Ooh, let's see. I have a women's retreat for sexual empowerment coming up in November of this year
Mm,
in Negril, Jamaica. So, if that's something that you would be interested in attending, it's going to be phenomenal.
get your
It's just
groove
me
back
and
in
another,
Jamaica.
yes, and me and another sister are facilitating all of the workshops and all of the experiences. It's going to be intimate. We're not even bringing other speakers in. And I'm so excited to have this
Yes.
opportunity. So if that's something you'd be interested in, definitely let me know. Hit me up on Instagram, send me a message.
Yes, hit her up, good people. And
Yeah,
thank you so much, Kaycee,
my
for this
pleasure.
conversation. This was really good. I hope people were taking notes
I hope
and
so.
they get their whole lives
Stay
together
together.
over here. I know I
Yeah.
will. So
Yeah.
thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys back here next week.